Welcome to Washington Defender Grassroots. I'm your host, Pastor Brian Noble, CEO of Family Policy Institute of Washington. That's FPIW.org or FPIW ACTION.org. Hey, so I am glad that you are here today. We are doing our candidate meet and greet. And do we have a Supreme Court justice that is running for office? And we would love for you to listen to this whole entire meet and greet. Now, our obvious statement at the beginning: this is not an endorsement of the candidate, nor the candidate's endorsement of FPIW or FPIW action. So we just need to put that out there. This is simply a public service to meet and greet the candidate. I'm honored to invite Judge Dave Larson to the stage. Dave, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me. It's greatly appreciated.
And just for clarity, I kind of stumbled over that. You're not currently a Supreme Court justice. You're running for that office. Yeah, how I made that sound.
I'm a retired judge, but my retirement only lasted 30 days, and then I'm back in the fray.
Awesome. So why don't you introduce yourself? There's going to be some listeners who don't know who you are, don't know about your family, don't about your background. Introduce yourself to us.
Well, I'm Dave Larson. Like I said, I'm a retired judge. I was a trial judge for 18 years, and I was a trial lawyer for 23 years, so a total of 41 years experience, legal experience. I have two sons. One's a police officer, and one's actually sheriff's deputy now. He transferred to King County. And then one that is a physician up in Mount Vernon. And then 5 grandkids. Just had the most recent one at the end of January.
Well, congratulations.
And, so just loving life and trying to do my best to make a difference, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. I have 3 grandkids, so you're outnumbering me. I got 2 other kids that could become producers, but anyways, they got to find a way first. So
that's it.
All right. So as far as you've been a judge, you're running for the Supreme Court. What makes you want to run now? Why is this important to you?
Well, if you haven't noticed, we're kind of in some turmoil, and my nickname in the past by some people has been called the mechanic because I fix things. I bring some calm to things. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is we're so interested in getting our way that we've lost our way. And we need to renew some fundamental principles about how we're supposed to operate. Like right now, the reason we're having problems is because people are really confused and kind of brainwashed into thinking that what we have to do is seek power and control. When in reality, in our form of government, it's about duty and responsibility. Yeah. And you can, if you just think of those different approaches, you can see why seeking power and control is so destructive to us, and seeking duty and responsibility, which if you look at the greatest generation, that's, the people who lived during World War II era and everything, they were really motivated by duty and responsibility rather than power and control. And we need to, I say, get back, because it's always been this struggle. Mm-hmm. And it's always been this kind of natural tendency in history and everything else for tyranny and power and control to try to dominate. And we developed an exception, and it's 250th anniversary of that, to where we said, no, we're going to govern ourselves, and we're going to get along, and we're going to peacefully coexist. And we're going to aspire to this government that's going to operate at the consent of the people, where people have the ultimate power. And that the purpose of government is protect rights, individual rights. And we've departed from that, and we need to get back to that.
It's interesting that you would bring up power and control, because we see from a biblical standpoint, as a pastor, Isaiah 33:22, where it talks about all that comes together in God, but we separated it as a nation intentionally because we know that our hearts tend towards power and control. And so I find that an interesting standpoint. And then also how our Constitution literally talks about the primary role of government is to protect our individual rights.
Right. And the reason we have separation of powers, the reason we have all those things, 3 branches of government and everything else, is to never let power coalesce. And because if you let power coalesce, anytime you see that in history, it's always turned out bad for the individual. And so people want democracy, but pure democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner.
Right.
And what our form of government is, you still have the wolves, you still have the sheep, but the Bill of Rights, chains up those wolves, and the courts operate as the post that chain's anchored to keep people from individual rights from being trampled on or eaten, for that matter. Right. In the case of the sheep.
Yeah, exactly right. So when you think about the Supreme Court and our current context as a state, what are some of the strengths that you're going to bring to your civil service on this?
Well, first of all, the word service I'm truly believe in servant leadership. I can tell a story if you want about how I see the way government officials are supposed to be. I'm very involved in civics education.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with some students along with 5 or 6 other elected officials. And one of the students asked, when did you feel closest to your position?
Mm.
And each of the other elected officials answered something in their official capacity. When it got to me, I said I was in the back of a line at chili cook-off.
Mm.
This person I knew came up and said, "Hey, Judge, how you doing?" They walked away. After talking to me for a couple minutes, the person behind me said, "Hey, you're a judge, just cut up in front of the line."
Mm.
Actually, when I don't have my robe on, I'm like anybody else.
Right.
I told the students the reason I told you that story is because my role is that of citizen first. I play a role as a judge. It's a responsibility, not a power. I'm a servant, not a master. And that's what we need. That's the kind of government official our founders envisioned. And you can look at Federalist Paper number 10. They're the kind of person that's supposed to hold elective office. And we as voters, because I'm a voter too, have made mistakes because what we want to do is install people in office that will assert our brand of power. And then there's this power struggle. And one of my sayings is, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. All I know is a bunch of chicken feathers to clean up. And that's where we are now, is just this mess caused by this desire to just have more power than the other side, to win or make sure the other side loses. And we're creating huge problems for the people that just want to live and love, live their life, be left alone. And people shouldn't have to worry about their government. They should be able to trust that it's looking out for their interest. And Article 1, Section 1 of our state constitution makes it clear that all political power is inherent in the people. Governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. And the purpose of government is protect and maintain individual rights. Can't be clearer than that.
Yeah.
So you be in office and you're going to take that oath. You better be serious about that.
Yeah. You know, I was a band geek growing up, but I went to a lot of basketball games, and I noticed that each basketball game, there was a referee, right? So it's that guy on the court who's calling the fouls, calling the different things. And when I look at a judge, that's what I'm kind of thinking. It's that neutral person who's looking at the rules, the base of the rules. What would and then calls the fouls and the yes or
well, the courts themselves, the way I describe it is, we're supposed to be the lighthouse in the storm, not a ship lost at sea.
Right.
We're supposed to be that constant as the political, because our system's designed for debate. Our system's designed to allow debate, because that's the only way that you can ever achieve the best laws. Allow everybody to have a say and look for consensus, but then we end up with laws with laws that we all need instead of laws that only some of us want when we use power and control.
Right.
And the courts are supposed to be that kind of, guys, this is how you're supposed to resolve things. This is how and if there is a dispute, you're going to come to us, and you know that whatever decision is going to come out of the other end is going to come from the right place and come from, even if you lose, that the decision came from the right place. Now, we're all human. We have defects. It's not perfect.
Right.
But I was explaining to somebody yesterday, a reporter I was talking to, because it was kind of like, well, you seem like you're idealistic. And I said, well, it all depends on what you aspire to. What do you aspire to?
Right.
If you just settle in and say, well, this is just the way it is. We're all going to hate each other. We're all going to fight. We're going to use the courts to get our political way. We're going to do all this stuff. And that's just the way it is. Well, that's all we're going to get. But if you aspire to something greater, you will get something greater. And that's what I'm trying to do is say, wait a minute, guys, we can do better than this in terms of how we govern ourselves,
right,
in the courts and elsewhere.
Right. Let's say like there's an extreme, like let's say we go to the extreme right or we go to the extreme left. As a judge, what would be your commitment to either, and then everyone in between, right? What's your commitment?
Well, in the court system, this is the thing, and I'm kind of doing some things on this right now, is really we don't understand how judicial race, we want to overlay politics onto the judiciary, and the judiciary is not supposed to be a political body. So I should be able to, if somebody's truly a judge and truly wants to be a judge, it wouldn't matter whether we're liberal, conservative, moderate, whatever we were. You could have a 3-judge panel, 3 judges of hugely different political persuasions. And if you're serious about being a judge, that decision there's always nuances in the law people can disagree on, but subject to those nuances, that decision should be pretty consistent. Right. But if you're imparting that kind of political viewpoint, those lenses that you're putting in it, you're going to have widely ranging decisions. It's going to seem like it's based on partisan politics, versus the law. And that's where we've gone in the sense that we, as voters, it's almost expected that you have to be one side or the other. And
Yeah.
that's the quiz people make. Well, no, it's not that way. It's a judge's personal opinions don't matter. It's our ability to overcome them
Right.
that becomes the test for us, because that's where it's a form of ministry. It's certainly not a religious ministry, but it's a form of ministry where you have to be dedicated to certain principles that make you credible when you're either up at the pulpit or sitting on the bench.
That's right.
Credibility, trust, confidence, all those things are essential. And if you're motivated by constraints other than what the law is, it's a guarantee that you're going to disenfranchise at least one side or more. And the courts are supposed to be that grand equalizer where, regardless of your political persuasion, where you live, socioeconomic status, religious status, whatever, the courts, everybody's equal. It doesn't matter where you're Bill Gates or a person living in the woods. When you're in a court, it's supposed to be everybody's equal, operating with the rule of law, operating with our rules.
You know, I was recently on jury duty, didn't get selected. Unfortunately, I would love to have served in that way, but I went to the training video, you know, that they have at the beginning of each jury duty session, I guess. And it really talked about bias. And I think that this is something that we have a misnomer about a little bit. How would you describe bias, and how do we handle our biases? And
bias in the simplest terms is making a decision before you know all the facts, whether it's about a person, whether it's about a case, whether it's about whatever, is that you've already kind of made up your mind, either through in multiple different ways about something before you've actually heard the whole story. And there's been so many. I let lawyers, when I was a judge, I would let lawyers argue back and forth. A lot of judges, you got 5 minutes and 5 minutes, and very strict about that. But I'd let them argue back and forth, because that kernel of truth that I may need may be in the last thing the person says. Right. And so the whole system of justice is designed to allow that conflict, because everybody's got their different version of how they perceive the truth. And the idea is to find the truth, not my truth, not the lawyer's truth, but the truth. Right. And you let that conflict happen, and from that, you'll make your best decisions. You know, that's, I think I answered your question.
Yeah,
but
you did. Yeah.
But the point is that, again, you have to be in love with the idea that your role is to let that process work so you can find the truth. When I did closing arguments back as a lawyer, a lot of lawyers would make the mistakes of trying to get people to dislike a witness so they wouldn't believe him. And I didn't go there. All I said was, you know, there's certain absolutes in life. There's death and taxes, and there's another absolute, and that's the truth. You can be mistaken about it. You can forget it. You can misperceive it. You can even lie about it. But it's always the truth. What happened, happened, and what didn't happen, didn't happen. And your job is not to find my truth or the other lawyer's truth, but the truth.
That's right. That's right. You know, I think oftentimes when we think of that idea of bias, we converge it into prejudice, right? So there's a difference between being prejudiced towards something, or already having a decision made up based upon external qualities, and having a bias where you're like, hey, in the sense of, I'm listening for the truth. We have a bias towards the truth, right? And any comments on that? Or, you know, I think our courts have fallen.
I get the distinction, but they're pretty close cousins, bias and prejudice, right?
Okay.
But the it can cloud the lens. Those lenses can cloud your judgment. But that's why, as a judge, you have to be pretty serious. Yeah, like, for instance, there's been a lot of talk about race and the effect of the court system has on, and the legal system in general has on people of color. And in my situation, in 2020, when I ran in the heart of the George Floyd circumstances, and I was running against a minority candidate, the Lauren Miller Bar, which is the bar association represents Black lawyers, rated me exceptionally well qualified. I'm higher rated than a Black candidate in this race this time, because of that, what I've demonstrated on the bench, and in the sense of being able to put bias and prejudice aside and be able to look what's in the best interest of people. I run a repair shop, not a junkyard mentality, where we want lives to be better when they leave. That is something that's been recognized, I believe, by people that felt disenfranchised by society, by the courts, and everything else. Because when you take that approach, it lifts them up as equals with everybody else, and gives them dignity and respect. And that's what our court system sometimes doesn't do a very good job. When it comes to race and prejudice, we don't cause it, but a lot of times we aggravate it in the way we treat people. And so ultimately, I introduced procedural justice into our courts, with a seminar a few years ago. But and I can explain that if you'd like. But the bottom line is it's simply how people feel and how they're treated, and essentially what you accomplish by how they're treated.
Wow. Well, I just think it's important because I think our culture and our nation have oftentimes run to, hey, this is the first, and then they put a qualifier. This is the first, and then the qualifier, and this is the first. But the reality is, we should be looking at how does a person maintain. The Bible says, "Watch over your heart with all diligence." How do we maintain a heart that's neutral, a heart that honors and respects every person created, and then treats them fairly and with equal justice under the law? In your particular case.
Well, the that's where faith comes in when you're in the justice system. Don't put your faith out on your sleeve, because you can't. Right. It's not
right.
But it informs you. And for instance, one of my attitudes is sometimes the people that need it the most deserve it the least. The whole idea of, you look at somebody and, well, they need us more than anybody else to help them have a better life. And that's one of the things you can carry over into the justice system, using parallel beliefs, in the sense of the dignity of humans and our ability to overcome our nature, which is really what we are obligated to do. But ultimately it's something that is very important to all of us. Each of us get to define our source of values, our source, and everything else, but we all do have to have a source of values. Right. We have to have some common understanding of how we operate in society, or else we end up with chaos, which is kind of contributing now, because the sense of what's right and wrong and what's good and bad has kind of put in a blender.
Yeah.
And there is a statute on the books and that actually defines the character traits that are needed to live in a free society for education. And when I was on the school board in Federal Way, I actually created a policy accentuating that statute to bring it to the forefront. Things like honesty, integrity, all things consistent with people of faith that we're supposed to live, and that can apply. It doesn't. You don't have to be a person of faith to have integrity and honesty and all those things. But it's necessary for us to function in a free society, for us to have all those things.
Right. You look at shared values within a society, and that's what you're talking about. It's just that baseline of respect for humanity and respect for those around you. Very, very good.
Dignity and respect. The one thing dignity and respect are as important to us as eating, breathing, and sleeping. For our nourishment, for lack of a better term. And if we go around and we're always, we're in this world right now where I'm entitled to my opinion, you're entitled to my opinion too. And if you don't agree with me, you're some horrible person.
Right.
That is so antithetical to the way we're supposed to exist. Disagreement is an opportunity, not a threat. It makes us better.
That is so true. I've actually had conversation with people where, they want to go down a certain line. I'm like, I'm not sure we have enough relationship yet for that conversation, because there is this trust and lack of trust that's happened between individuals that really has polarized each other. And that's why I love about the courts, or the ideology or the ideas of the court, is that it is supposed to be a neutral, safe place that we each get equal justice. And, as we go forward, I hope we can have that in our culture. How would people get in touch with you? And I know that part of this, the court system is that not fundraising. Why? In fact, why does the courts do that? Why can't you fundraise?
Well, there's an ethics rule that prohibit us judges from directly soliciting money, for obvious reasons. I mean, it just looks horrible that here you are, a judge, going out asking for money from people, and if they contribute to you. Right now, there's not a mandatory recusal rule, and I could explain more of that if you want, but it's just, you have to have somebody else ask for you. I mean, people can visit my website and look there and see that there's an opportunity, but to contribute, but I can't request people to do that. It just has to be something, and we're not allowed in a lot of ways to use our position for personal gain or for the gain of others too. Every time I speak someplace, I got to make sure that if it's like in a political situation, if it couples with a fundraiser, that they don't put me out there as bait.
Right.
To come to the fundraiser, because I can't do that. I can't permit it. And it's something, I think the ethics rules are designed to encourage, to kind of instill a sense of trust. It's living up to them that becomes the more difficult thing in other contexts where people don't trust the courts. that has to be more to do with bias and prejudice that seems to be accepted today, because there seems to be a level of bias and prejudice that's okay. And it's never okay. Right. I don't care whether it's popular or unpopular. Courts are supposed to be that neutral body that you can trust, regardless of your political persuasion or whatever, that you're going to have a fair decision.
So we are always asking our Washington defenders to investigate candidates. So I'm just going to put your website up so they can investigate you, larsonforjustice.com. And just want to encourage you to go there, look into him, check out his values, check out where he is as a judge, and get to know him so that we're informed. Also, remember this, as you investigate, take 10 people and steward them in the information you get. Share that information with at least 10 other people, and make sure that as they go out and they let their voice be heard in the public square through voting, that they're informed citizens in the public square. I think it's incredibly important. So here it is, larsonforjustice.com. Is that the right?
Yes. Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Yes. In 2024, I won 56 to 44% outside of King County. I lost by 30% in King County because of some negative, misleading ads that my opponent did. But in that race, there was 700,000 less people voted for Supreme Court than they did for governor. And so it's very important, like you said, to really educate yourself, voters to educate themselves on judges, and actually elect judges, and rather than only have part of us elect judges, have the entire folks be involved in that process.
Yeah, and again, from the biblical perspective, it says, select from among yourself people who are honest, won't take a bribe, have a fear of God, and are truthful. So, I mean, I look at those things from Exodus 18:21. And so when you're looking at any of the Supreme Court justices, I believe we're voting on 5. Is that right? 5?
Yes, there are five seats. There's, I think, 17 people have filed this year, which is really, it's just good. It gives people choices.
Right.
I believe I'm the best choice, but I guess we'll tell. Somebody asked me one time who's going to win a football game, and I said the team with the most points. I've never been wrong. and here it'll be the person with the most votes. So we got a primary in August with 4 of us running for the same seat, and then ultimately the top 2 go to the general.
Okay, for the particular seat that you're in.
In my seat, yeah. In the seats, position 5. I'm running against somebody that's been given money to Governor Ferguson since 2009. So he's been appointed. And so, and a couple other people, a judge in Thurston County that's got about a third of the experience I do, and on the bench. So we'll see. We'll see what the voters decide.
Yeah. And of course, on Defender Grassroots, we're willing to interview anyone. We don't just select them. We just put it out there. It's on our website. You can go there and select. And we do this type of interview. We just want to meet and greet each and every single candidate that is running for office. And so we'd love for you to do that. Any closing remarks before we call it a day?
Well, we always end the Pledge of Allegiance with liberty and justice for all. It's because you can't have one without the other. So a fully functioning justice system is absolutely essential for freedom. And if you don't have that, it's freedom's challenged. And I think we're in that position now where freedom's challenged in a lot of ways because of what the courts have done or failed to do. And the other thing I can add to this is that I'm recognized nationwide for solutions on criminal justice. So that's a big deal that I bring to the court.
And all that's on your website as well, right?
Yeah, we're revamping the website, make it a little better than it is now. But to get more of that out there, one state senator said the problem with me is there's too much to talk about in terms of what I've done. And I also hope that doesn't sound like I'm boasting, but that's what he said, not me. But but there is a lot there that I hope voters consider in deciding that I'm the best candidate.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do our closer video, and then we'll come back a little bit later this week. God bless.
You love our beautiful state, but does fighting for issues that most affect families ever feel like you're climbing alone? It can feel like an uphill climb in a hostile environment that champions causes detrimental to Washington families. Again and again, the summit feels out of reach, but you don't have to climb alone. With like-minded people fighting for Washington families by your side, the journey becomes not just possible, but powerful. The Defender app, brought to you by the Family Policy Institute of Washington, connects you with your team for the climb ahead. Connect with conservatives who care about issues affecting families in your specific county and across our state in order to make our voices be heard locally and in Olympia. Simply click Learn to stay informed about the latest news affecting families. With one click, press Huddle to team up with other conservative minds in your specific county who care about how these issues affect you in your unique community. Then simply press Activate to get involved and to make your voice heard on legislation that matters in Olympia. With the Washington Defender app, you won't face the fight alone. Together, we can make a difference for families in Washington. Download the Washington Defender app today, a simple way to let your voice be heard.